And we're live.
Do you play online a lot? Like, is that part of your thing? Did you go online and just play like 6 hands at a time and grind away profits?
I used to play a lot online,
Mm-hmm.
but they really made it illegal in America to play online.
So do you hypothetically play online very much?
Not anymore. I actually don't play that much these days anymore. I'm more focused on content and running some businesses and stuff. But
yeah, just for Woody and like I guess the audience, you started playing the penny games, right? Like 1 cent and 2 cent blinds, and didn't you turn like $20 into 10,000?
So I originally started in poker. I think I lost my first number of deposits. I forget exactly how many, but then I eventually turned $20 into everything I have today. But recently, because people were saying like, "Oh, you can't do it anymore. You can't turn $100 into 10,000 anymore." Or there were a lot of people that believe that. I was like, you definitely still can. So I did my own challenge on Twitch where I streamed the whole thing of me playing, and we took $100 and we turned it into $10,000. So
nice.
I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. That's super impressive. I never enjoyed playing online. I really like the in-person, everything about being there at the table. I want to feel the felt. I want to touch the chips. I want to, and a lot of times there would be actual cash on the table. You know, I want to see the money, and I really want to see the other guy. And it's not like I'm necessarily getting a read off of him. I'm not trying to say that, but like I want to see him and like kind of know his demeanor, because I'm not nearly as good, or I never was nearly as good at looking at like Dragon Slayer 309 and remembering, oh, he's really loose, Dragon Slayer 309. But I know Carl over there owns 8 barbecue restaurants, and he just don't give a fuck. He absolutely will throw. He absolutely will throw another 500 in if on a gut shot or something.
Carl's in it for an evening of fun. He's not counting anything.
Yeah.
Carl could have anything, and that's a real life guy that I knew. He just didn't give a fuck. He was 65 years old, and he was very wealthy, and he was just having fun. And then there'd be another guy who was always drunk. He's always drunk. And the later the night
betting. That doesn't seem responsible.
And the later the night goes on, the drunker he'd be and the looser he'd be. And then there's certainly guys that's like, I really don't even want to play with him. I don't want to be in a hand with this guy. It seems like he's playing so tight all the time that if he's in there after we all raised $50 pre-flop, then he's got something scary. And I know that on the turn there's going to be a $200 or $300 bet, and I'm not ready to go there. And I liked being in person a lot more than online.
Well, the data that you get is just different. So for example, if I'm at a table with someone, there are things I can see, right? I can see the way he moves, how he touches his chips, when he's in a hand, what his posture is like, where he looks, basically all these mannerisms, all these things are visible. So you get to know a lot about your opponent. Like if they're an older guy, and this is just generally true, older guys don't bluff as much. It's kind of like a known thing. They're more conservative. Young kids, if some kid sits down at your table, he's 22 years old, and he's got a hoodie and headphones on, that kid's going to be aggro as fuck. Because they're aggressive. Kids learn if you want to be good at poker out of the gate, you have to be aggressive. Like you have to win pots, you have to go after it. And so how did a 22-year-old end up here? He probably won his money playing poker, and he's probably really aggressive, right? Also, he might be used to playing 10 tables online, so he's bored and he's like trying to be really aggressive. And so you have all these things you can take away when you're sitting at the table with someone. Online, there are things you can take away, but it's different. It's funny you bring up screen names. You actually can tell some stuff about screen names. For example, if someone's screen name is like 2 words capitalized correctly and kind of witty, that's a regular player. It's because a lot of thought went into that, right? If like the screen name is like
I'm all in 42069. That's mine.
That's a fish. If you see that guy, that's where you want to be. I'm all in with 7 numbers at the end. That's the game's running around that guy. So you can get some stuff, but what's cool is that you can get more quantifiable data. You can see the numbers on things, rather than Carl can have any two cards. It's Carl plays 71% of his holdings. What does that look like? So you get data that's, in my opinion, maybe even more accurate. Like over time is more accurate because you get these averages with numbers, but maybe initially is much worse because you can't actually just see Carl there with barbecue stains or whatever he's got on.
Do you ever use fake names to trick people? Like whenever I want to be anonymous, I'm like just a dude 2002, right? So they think I'm some 16-year-old idiot. Is that play you do or no?
That's definitely a play that people do for sure. But then it becomes a game. Like if it's too stupid, maybe like it's clearly. But the thing is, the jig can only go on for so long because if you play against someone and they're good, and after 30 or 50 hands that you see that they're playing good, you're like, okay, this guy's not an idiot, you know. One thing I used to do back in the day. This is actually quite funny. So my form of poker I always like to play was heads up. Just one-on-one poker basically, and so that's the form I think most people like know me from. Basically, that was the one I got the best at, and I did this thing where I knew no one would ever play me if they knew who I was. I knew a lot of people wouldn't play me if I was just playing good, so I developed some like really weird strategies that if I played another really good player, I couldn't do because I would lose. It would be a bad strategy, but just like kind of crazy enough strategies that people couldn't tell if I was bad or not. Right? Because they just like can't tell. So like maybe overall I'm playing pretty good, but pre-flop, usually you want to open to 2.5 big blinds, kind of the standard. It's like just a poker thing, like to know what to raise to. Sometimes I might raise like 6, right? Sometimes I might just call. Sometimes I might raise 1 or what. Like I was like throwing it all over the place, and the logic was I would think about what makes sense in that range. Like if I was going to raise really big, well, I'd put some really bad hands in there as a bluff, and I'd put some good hands in there in case they get crazy, right? And so I was like thinking about all these different ranges and trying to create stuff that actually made sense. But if you just looked at it and eyeballed it, you're like, this guy's a crazy fish. He's putting a ton of money in, doesn't know what's going to come out. Like no one plays like that. That guy's an idiot. But I actually managed to like fool a lot of people into playing me for long periods of time just by doing crazy shit like that.
I actually have a trick I've done with online poker like that too, where I make all of my screen names so it sounds like an underage girl. And then as soon as you've paid the blind, I get very sexual in the chat, and then they will leave inevitably. And I slowly have garnered my fortune, you know, ante after ante after ante. And if they do decide to stay in and beat me, I report them to the FBI. I've got a whole Google Doc. So that's worked. But something I did want to ask you, like a real
that strat.
Yeah, it's hard to lose with that strat. You know, when I'm Susie Q09, you know, or whatever the hell it is. I'm 9 years old. Yeah. I'm just slaughtering people. Like, I've wondered about like sunglasses and hoodies and things like that I see in that world where like somebody will be sitting there totally normal, like you are now, and then some other dude will come in with a hoodie and sunglasses and like an Antifa, you know, bandana and like
it's all unibombered out.
Is that like among poker players, like pros? Is that like you look down on it a little bit, like that's like the training wheels of it? Like, oh, you're so not confident in your mannerisms, you're wearing sunglasses and listening to music. Like, really? Or is it kind of understood? I feel like people would rip on them for that. Like, I'm sitting here totally, you know, face to the world, and you're sitting there totally shrouded. Like, it doesn't seem fair.
That's a really good question. There are two different reasons people do it. The first is not what you would expect, but tables
just ugly.
No, it's definitely not. Well, some players, but no, it's really bright at the table. The lights are extremely bright to show all the chips and cards, everything. So it can be a little bit unsettling just how bright the lights are coming in at you. And some people just don't want to have that right in their eyes. It's just too much for them. So some people do it because of that. A lot of people do it because there are certain things that you can't control. A good example of this, there's like kind of a thing that's going on in poker for the last few years, is a lot of guys wear scarves, which is just, why are you doing this? But your neck, the way that it, I'm not super into this stuff, so I'm not the best guy to explain it, I guess. But your neck apparently, when you gulp or you're just breathing, whatever it is, it looks different depending on what your motives are. And so there's a bunch of guys who always protect their neck with like scarves and stuff, so no one can see that. Your eyes are like that too, you know. So I had a big hand in TV poker like 4 or 5 years ago, where I ran a really big bluff on like a fairly well-known TV poker game. And the guy is like, you know, he's a serious dude. He's like staring me down. Like I'm sitting here and he's sitting right here, and he's just staring me down, like right in my grill, just like staring me down. And I have nothing. I'm just like staring at the table or whatever. And I'm like, this is really uncomfortable. Like I'm risking several $100,000 to try and bluff this guy out of pot, and he's just like staring me down, like trying to figure out like is there any little bit of weakness there? And that's just uncomfortable, man. A lot of people just don't want to have to deal with that. So that bluff, by the way, didn't work. But anyway, the point is, the thing is, like, I think in general, it's not looked down upon too much. I think a lot of players tend to be like, come on, dude. But certainly some great players do that. And I think it's a reasonable strategy.
Huh. No one fakes it. No one tries to act it. Like you're maybe adding apprehension that's not really there when you're confident and throwing them off the trail.
Dude, mark my words, 5 years from now, the best poker player on earth is going to have cerebral palsy. You can't read what they're doing. All their moves are a little erratic, just enough that you can't read it. Josh Blue showed that you can do it in stand-up, and I swear to God, he's going to leave that, come over here and dominate. This is a good idea. If you see someone with cerebral palsy, bet on them. Gamble on them. They're going to do great.
I don't even know. I don't even know what to say to that.
Everywhere.
I would have had 4 of a kind if I hadn't dropped it into the fucking table. Yeah.
So,
one with 3 of a kind.
Shit, what was the question again? Oh yeah, acting different. So this is actually basic human psychology. The number one human tell, by the way, is weak means strong and strong means weak. Okay. And I'll give you like a really good example. Let's just say that your girlfriend is cheating on you and she is suspicious of you and she comes up really aggressive, like, what do you do? It's like, she's strong because she's acting strong because her position is weak, right?
Yeah.
This is like basic human stuff. When we're weak, we don't want to seem weak, so we puff up a little bit and we do things to seem strong. So the most common one at low level poker games is if someone's like, I don't really care, like, I guess like we can go all in. You should be really scared because that's a really good hand, right? If you had a bad hand, you're not gonna be like, oh, my hand sucks, so I guess we'll go with it. Like, no, you're not going to do that because you're just giving away what you have. Or if someone says, this is a classic one, oh, it's the end of the night, I guess I'll go. I guess I got to go home. Very strong.
Oh.
But if someone's like really like intimidating, like trying to like scare you and stuff, they usually don't have anything. So that's kind of like the level 1 thing. Then you could go level 2, which is I'm going to seem strong when I'm strong. But the problem is this, you keep playing this game, you're going to go in circles. So what really good players do is they just do the same. Like, for example, one thing I do, if I have a really big hand and I'm going all in on the river, if I have a good hand, I'll gulp like kind of loudly or just like very noticeably gulp because I know when I'm bluffing, it sucks having to gulp. And so I'll do it like obnoxiously large gulp either way, because then when I'm bluffing, I'm like, I'm going to do the same thing when I got a good hand. And when I have a good hand, I'm like, maybe he'll think I'm weak. But you just do the same and to protect yourself.
Okay.
How about if you did something like more subtle, like every time they give you a card, no matter what, you go, hell yeah.
They actually have a term for that in poker. It's called being annoying.
It's called being grating and frustrating to play with. Yeah.